Well, due to popular recommendation from the chat, here we go. Boys, gals, and non-binary pals, welcome back to the AOE4 action. We've got a fun one here. We've got Lucifron, rank number 1 on the leaderboards, the Spaniard champion, the unslayable, playing as the Ottomans on Rocky River. And in his way, we have got someone who better not be sleeping in game, because you sleep for a second, Lucifron will sweep you away. Is playing as the Byzantines in the pink. Interesting matchup on a map like Rocky River. I've been seeing a lot more experimentation actually on Rocky River. A lot of people just shifting out of the comfort zone of the 2 or 3 most ideal optimal picks like the Japanese, like the Ayyubids, and looking a bit beyond the ponds. So curious to see what kind of gameplay we're going to get here. We're going to hit it 2 times the opening. It's going to be the military school standard opening that we see quite often from the Ottomans here, just to apply some initial pressure. Byzantines already moving out into the gold, and they did get a lot of forward spawning here, actually. Gold and stone on the front side means that is a threat point for Lucifron to try and squeeze him at. Berry spawning behind is pretty nice for a Grand Winery placement here in a very condensed location, so we might be looking at that kind of farm-focused later game phase for the Byzantines. Outside that, spawn-wise, nothing too alarming here. There is an insane amount of berries to the south side, so if it ever develops into pocket resource gathering, that's a really big edge for the Byzantines to lean towards here. Cool thing for them as well is Lucifron's slightly more edged towards the north side, so less likely that he focuses down here. But Grand Winery is going to be dropped like we talked about. Only 1 cistern so far. A bit surprised by this. I feel like we see more players adding in the second cistern layer before they even kick off the tech up. We've actually seen some players immediately prioritizing on each side of the TC, but right now, just has a cistern gathering rate, and it's not even affecting his gold or stone. Gold workers are now going to be harassed a little bit, but has got plenty more than enough here, so should be enough to get him into 1 or 2 initial eco techs if he chooses. On the other side, we are going to be getting the twin minaret madrasa, so nothing out of the usual here. We're not going to see any trade attempts, which I really would love to see Ottoman players trying to do it, but it just feels like most of the most effective plays right now revolve around this idea of safe food. And there's no denying that the Twin Minaret Madrasa with its 50% increased gathering speed is hard to compete with. I mean, with a 50% increased gathering speed, folks, that makes it as efficient as gathering from pool. So, tech ups, complete on one side. Minaret Madrasa almost done. Archery range being dropped. The reason why ZZZ goes for an archery range instead of just dropping Merc House and going into longbows, which is pretty effective comp choice in this matchup, is because it takes too long. I think one of the big downsides right now with the mercenary contracts, that if they resolved it would fix the weakness of the Byzantines early game, is that right now this olive oil is just dead resource. 270, 280, like he's just holding onto it. It doesn't do anything, right? It's similar to that idea of saving for a tech up and then getting blocked at the very end. Until you have 500 resources of this, you can't start buying units. And that's a very big detrimental point about mercenary play in the early game for Byzantines that I think makes it difficult for them to react to aggro plays quick enough. And that's also why you've seen a lot of Byzantine players default towards defensive-focused strategies, is because they can't get the aggression out quick enough. Now, there is potentially a counter-argument that if they ever do change it, maybe the longbow spam becomes too good and English becomes a little bit less relevant, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. It just means that Byzantines will have an early game presence, and then we can start focusing on the necessary nerfs that need to occur for its late game. Because right now, Byzantine's late game is a little bit wacky with the Mangonel tower spam, with the ability to go into infinite Streltsy, the power of the late game olive oil can't be denied. And then, of course, there's Limitane, which are just a bonkers unit for late game engagements. But right now, everyone is just looking at Byzantine saying, oh my god, Byzantines OP, oh my god, incredible Byzantines. You have to get past the early game, and that just doesn't happen very often, it feels like. At least not easily. And against a Civ like Ottomans, that can be a big threat, because this is definitely a tempo-based Civ capable of just applying a lot of pressure in that feudal, or even just rushing Castle Age and coming over the top with counters. Wondering which build Lucifron's going to go for here. He's adding in the stables, so it looks like we're going to have a little bit of presence here. Makes a lot of sense. He's already seen his opponent go into archers, and it looks like we are going to be seeing the Eastern Contract, which it's interesting because I'm not going to lie, folks. If you consider all phases of the game, at least, I rate Eastern Contract to be the worst of the contracts. Now, hold on. Early game, bonkers strong. Keshik's incredible unit. Golems at the beginning of Castle Age, very strong. Tower Elephants, unless you're the biggest fan of Dumbo, I don't think you're really rooting for those bad boys. And then let's consider the other options, right? So late game, being able to get jabs into camels. The camels with the camel support, if you go foreign engineering company, is bonkers. Outside that, hyper late game, Imperial Age, Streltsy are just too dominant. Even early game, Lombos can fare incredibly well. I think it's fair to say like the only downside on those other two contracts is the late game choice of Grenadiers that I find underwhelming. But outside that, I think they just tick more boxes than the Eastern contract does. The reason you go Eastern contract is because you need to be present in early game. It's solely about Keshiks in my eyes. I do think that this contract gets taken a bit too often when people go Hippodrome. You don't have to go Keshiks with Hippodrome play, but it is a pretty synergistic choice. This, of course, is a Grand Winery game, but the cool thing about Grand Winery here is he's getting this additional olive oil to pump out the initial Keshiks to get mid-map aggression. It's a smart read as well. Yes, you're up against Spearman already, but now what you're forcing this Sipahi to do is dance your dance instead of diving your economy. And remember, Sipahi, they're a lot more tanky than standard horsemen. They have better damage, better reach, so if they're given an opportunity, they will always dive. Lucifron, meanwhile, going for that fast castle build we talked about. So I only really prepped the stables to have that option, that little bit of flexibility. Didn't need it in the end. Behind this, ZZZ just a lot cleaner. He's almost at Castle Age already. This is a really good timing. Level 2 system as well. I'm quite impressed. Usually people have to go like third system to feel good about these type of timings, and that obviously delays you further. They also did wall up the same way that Lucifron did, so you can't even argue that, you know, Lucy had to wall more. Interesting detail of difference here is the wheelbarrow choice, right? Is the way that he built, because he went for the Grand Winery. Remember, the Grand Winery is a religious building. It's not a mill, which means you can't get wheelbarrow there. And ZZZ wasn't willing to spend that extra resource on the mill at all. So still no wheelbarrow for them. That will become important soon with these olive groves where you're doing a lot more walking around these farms. But for the time being, it's given them a much tighter timing on this tech up. You can already see they're halfway there by the time Lucifron begins his own. And also mid-map aggression is looking good for them. 4 Keshiks now. And any damage being done here is basically going to be permanent, right? So that's the difference. The Keshiks are able to also heal up off any initial trades you took. They're going to get rid of that damage done. I don't know how that... You guys saw that, right? Why did the sheep go to pink when yellow... What? Sheep have a mind of their own, man. Like, you know what it is? The sheep was looking for the alpha. They saw the dominance of the Keshiks. They were like, you're my master. I'll follow you to the ends of the earth. Bit weird. But let it be. Tech up complete. Imperial Memorand Armory is going to be about another 20 seconds away. First 3 Pumper Keshiks on the way. I imagine we are going to see an upgrade of the contract very quickly here. Just need to get a little bit more gold and he's pumping people across there now. I wonder where ZZZ's going with this type of build. I mean, it's good at mid-map aggression, and now that you have the Grand Winery, you have the ability to pump monks. So if you can keep Lucifron pushed in his base, this could quickly escalate gold-wise. Like, the relics, they're mid-mapped, right? That's the nice thing. I think Rocky River, on average, tends to be very balanced on its relic spawning. Most definitely when you get spawns like this, where both players are centralized. So both players have an opportunity to play towards this. It's just naturally easier for the Byzantines to this build. I imagine Lucifron right now can't afford the extra wood into a monastery, doesn't want to spend the Vizier points on the Imam pump, because that's a one-offer, and he wouldn't even have a way of running out of them right now against Heavy Cav. Interesting that ZZZ is still not going into the upgrade. Looks like he's queued behind, okay. And I'm hoping we're going to see a switch over to Dialecticus just to get it that much quicker. If not, there's an important timing window here where Lucifron might be able to take a fight ahead of his opponent because he's got these high veterancy coming in 25 seconds. Instead, not going to rush this upgrade. That's something I noticed, like, that's going to take time to get used to. Some of the best Byzantine players I've watched so far are the ones that are just toggling systems on the fly. But it's difficult to remember. You have to click on them and actively check what they were on. Keshiks. I'm just going to be pushed away for the time being. We have got a switch up coming in. Limitane as well as the crossbows. Now, crossbows is not something I was expecting straight away. It makes sense from Pink's perspective, like what he'd expect to be up against. But we can see that Lucifron's just pumping more Sipahi here. The funny part is because he's able to afford both Sipahi and crossbows, Limitane rather, and crossbows, he counters everything anyway, so it doesn't actually hurt his comp. Reason why he's able to do that is, remember, like these Sipahi, you've actively produced them at a premium, or you passively produce them and they take a bit longer to come out. So there's always a little bit of a conundrum for that factor. Also, this is a game where the tech up time has gone so fast. It's impressive that he's even got the 4 military schools, right? But that means that he's had to offset and give up other Vizier point potential. It's why we still don't see a meta in the mixer for Luciferon, even this deep in. I know 12 minutes might not sound deep, but when you're this far in Castle Age, I mean, Sipahi, most players will opt to have one because it is a big difference maker, especially with the movement speed. Just not able to afford it. Someone's going to be able to afford the world at this rate. Second relic already dropped off. This is looking more and more like a 5 relic game. He has at least got Sipahi patrol on this west side one, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a sneak attempt for the relic in the north corner. Meanwhile, Luciferon, he only just got his first monk out, so finally moving out for those relics. What a delay. ZZZ. More systems coming in, so now to level 3. This is where it really starts to kick up. Like, we're probably going to see more grows being added in at a faster pace now, up to 7 or 8 more, just to keep that churn of Keshik coming out. But now, switching to Gulam is a pretty interesting choice. Makes a lot of sense as well. Like, what has your opponent revealed? Spearmen, which have no melee armor, and then also Sipahi. Sipahi, which have no melee armor. So this Gulam read, if Luciferon doesn't see it, if he doesn't read it, and we talk about a fight around the sacred site, there's a ripple effect where these are units that can dive your base and shut the entire economy down. And while we always brag about Ottomans functioning well without like active gathering, there are limits to that. And yep, good shout coming from the chat. Remember, these Gulams do have the ability to build siege in the field. In fact, if they pop out, we can talk about them. Where are the Gulams right now? Am I blind? They are hiding somewhere. They're hiding over here. Boom. Funny thing about that as well, as far as I can tell, as soon as a Gulam starts building something, all the other units can join in on building it as well. At least that's how it looked to me. I'd have to do some tests for that to be sure. Janissary now coming up. The Keshik, they find him building the TC! No. Okay, he cancels it, but that did cost him a little bit of resources. 1 or 2 torches were thrown in. So Keshiks are going to be forced away temporarily. TC is going to be attempted to rebuild again. 7 villages working that up. Sipahi, by the way, if he turns around with the Keshiks here, if he micros back the injured ones, he could take a fight. It would be difficult, though, and I don't think it's worth it for Pink right now. So he'll allow the second TC. This is still a 3 versus probably 2 relic game at this pace. But behind this, a second TC now coming in from Pink. So not to be outdone here. 15 villages means they should actually have a similar timing. Obviously, Yellow's TC is already complete. But there's maybe 1, max 2 villages behind on the Byzantine side. And the crazy part is you have to remember you got these olive walls being added in, which kind of negates the effect of all this passive reduction. Okay, Keshiks. So let's see if the Gulams do go for these Springalds. I mean, he doesn't know about the mangoes yet, right? You can suspect, but you need confirmation before you commit. Some players are really tricky with Ottomans where they'll read what the player's going to be and get a Springled first. We can see this just your standard double mango pump for a fun time. I'm getting this feeling, though, that the Keshiks are going to try to sneak in while the farmer isn't guarding the hen house. And that's exactly what they're going to do. The timing on this, Luciferon, quick peel away. That is the instant reactions you want out of a pro. Needs to be careful, though. Almost exposed the mango. The problem is when he reacts like this, it just buys more time. And remember, Pink's the one harvesting information with these Keshiks he's already built. So he now knows a bit more about what's coming. And shout out to Packer coming in with the sub. I appreciate you, buddy. Y'all want to be subbed to this channel because that means not only are you able to help support me as a content creator, it means that you do not have to worry about the ads. Because you can feel it, can't you, right now? You can sense it. A fight is on the way. And wouldn't it be terrible if an ad played right now? Priest on the flank, not able to get that cap, so no extra gold trickle there. Decap in the center in the meantime. Luciferon playing further out, which means the Keshiks, they're shaking their hips, they're licking their lips, and they're looking to pounce again. Doesn't look like they're going to find a way in easily, though. That's going to be a burn through. maybe Luciferon's going to open a path if he's not careful up here with the wood line, so need to be careful of that. Now, Luciferon, he should read this for what it is, which is a lot of the army is not defending right now. So right now, the military advantage is not there with Pink. Willem's charging out, though. Let's dive into the Mangonel outpost. If there's a quick repair here, you can keep this alive long enough to add in a lot of damage. Spearman now turned around at the Sipahi. Have to back away, though. Mango's warping away at them. Crossbows countering this out. The Limitane are getting for a lot of Sipahi, and the Keshiks are in. They've found their way into the economy. And right now, this has turned into a bad fight for Lucifer. He's just not cleaning up fast enough. The Mango's just not finding the hits at all. Wasting way too much time on the Limitane. Crossbow's able to back up. And keep in mind, by the way, Limitane are more effective against Janissary because they can have the ranged armor to offset additional damage. Remember, it's 50% of the ranged damage removed, and then you remove the ranged armor, which means Jannies with lower base damage hit even lighter. The dive continues. We've got only a bow upgrade here, so no Mangonel, but these Mangonels are trying to wreak hell right now. However, the Keshiks still have not been cleared up. Damage is now escalating. Even with textiles, he cannot keep the raiders at bay. Keshiks just finding their warps piece for piece as they dive everywhere in the base. Oh my. Meanwhile, on the flip side of this, Luciferon, he's diving pretty deep, but now it's starting to turn against him. Remember, these crossbows, they count the Janissaries just because of the fact they're ranged units. The Janissary count has been heavily diminished. And my worry now is you don't have the supply to counter this. The Keshiks, by the way, are still actively raiding. They are massacring underneath the TC. Now, Eco lead is only 6. But keep in mind, that was all the aggression thrown away for Lucy. That's all his passive siege. That's everything. Keshiks are still able to raid. Army is still looking healthy. Like, at the end of the day, Pink did not lose the crossbows. And that means the Janissaries are still weirdly answered. On top of that, he now has a Sprinkle to fight with, a Mango to fight with, and more Ghoulems on the way. A lot more, in fact. He pumps up 3 queues of them, and oh my. Has he got the passive go? Dude. I'm a bit worried now, folks. Remember what we said about Ghoulems as a counter to Sipahi? We didn't really see it in that fight because they just didn't have the numbers to gap close to fight. Now they do. And they're going to slap hard. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, there's 0 melee armor upgrades for Lucy. So he doesn't have any layer of protection. In fact, his entire army is countered by Ghoulems to a certain extent because these units are super effective against low armor units. The double strike. Look at 10 and then 15. If you have armor, that's where these Ghoulems kind of like suck, right? If you have like Ghoulems versus English men-at-arms, doesn't feel like a great clash compared to normal men-at-arms. But this is where this unit shines for its premium price. And you have to remember, like, you're not really paying a premium as the Byzantines. You're paying an olive oil. I mean, it was premium for its time, but in this game, it's infinitesimal. And it's just a byproduct of getting food. Oy, oy, oy. A tough one now. And I think Luciferon knows it. His military numbers are not looking scary whatsoever. This is active reboom versus passive at its finest. And remember, it's active, just juiced up. Adrenaline to the max. Remember, Conscriptio at this stage, 80% increased production rate on all these buildings. I don't think that was that a cancel in time? I hope so. Otherwise, that system's very expensive. I think he cancelled it just in the nick of time there. Otherwise, he would have lost 250 stone. Spy in the back are going to buy a bit of time, but the problem here right now is even if Luciferon sees what he's up against, he doesn't actually have the answers right now. Realistically, he wouldn't need crossbows to feel better about this. He doesn't have those. In fact, instead, he's going extra greedy. 3rd TC, and it got scouted out. That village is dead. So ZZZZ knows exactly what this is. If they just push, they could end this game quickly. I think they're getting ready to as well. I mean, it's 59 military. You know your opponent's military is going to be smaller when they play 3rd eco like this. He also did scout out the entire force, right? And if you're Pink, you're thinking, oh, that wasn't many Sipahi. Is that everything he's got? Should we test this? And healthy amount of siege as well. Free Spring was just really smart read here. You can now see Luciferon trying to get his own anti-siege, but so slow in comparison. In fact, has he dropped a siege workshop? Because I think that would be the sensible play here. No, he's being greedy. Surprising as well, because he actually has a lot of wood to play with. And the problem is if you don't have the numerical advantage, if you don't think you have numerical advantage going into this fight, you have to view the Byzantines like you would the Abbasids at this stage. They can build siege on the go. They're not handcuffed to a siege workshop like other civs. War's now going up. ZZZZZ wants this to be one funneled fight. Understandably, he's moved full infantry, right? There's a few Keshiks remaining, but the difference is Lucifron is actively scaling Sipahi again. And this is just a smart read by Pink. This is pretty standard play for the Ottomans at this phase of the game. They transition into Sipahi and Janissaries in prep for Imperial Age, because once you reach Imp, that is the optimal comp. We've seen it time and time again, just win out. But check this. Talking of Imp, Pink with a pristine timing, foreign engineering company on the way. Now, the Ghulams should not be getting Mamluks bravery because that, or Sultan's bravery, because that is an Ayyubid thing, and these are Abbasid Ghulams from what I could always tell. But where this can change things up a bit, I think it's with the Keshiks, because they get the upgrade they usually get in Castle Age, right? The increased damage. So that should be a kicker for them. Interestingly enough, actually, this is literally the worst mercenary contract for foreign engineering company, right? Yeah, you get the boot camp. Thank you very much. They get boot camp, but that's it, right? Now, the reason this is the worst one, you'd think, well, KP, but you get crossbow tower elephants. Right now, it's, if I remember correctly, unless they changed it in like a last week or two, tower elephants already get the crossbows when they're elited for, like, without engineering company. Like, you don't need engineering company. I don't think they've fixed that. So I think it's still a case of, if this was about getting crossbows on elephants, he did not need the engineering company. I might be wrong. I haven't double-checked that in the last 2 weeks. But I know 2 weeks ago, you literally could... We cast games where there were elephant crossbows, and the person had gone for Palatine School. So I don't know if that's been fixed yet. But you are right. For boot camp, this is super sick. What I'd love to see is the camel option. No camels. That's unfortunate, because with foreign engineering company, if they had a camel option on the neutral posts, they could have got the infantry support, which would have been huge here. That being said, their army is still huge, and it's ready to fight. And they just spawned that cannon, so they have a quick siege, a quick breakthrough. A spammer racks on the front side. Pink knows what he needs to keep this push going. Remember, Lucifron is still in recovery mode because, you know, he's gone for this third TC. He's not looking fat. He's not looking scary right now. He's only now setting up the farms. He's setting them up in the open fields. And that might look a bit throwy, a little bit weird from Lucifron, but there's a very reasonable logic behind this, and it's that he can't really build them anywhere else right now. Like, it doesn't matter that he's building them here, because the fight is going to be straight into his base. It's the most sensible way for Pink to take this, because he's at a GG end-state force. Against the push. Cannons. Immediately going to look to demolish that TC on the front side. And it's not going to last long here. Villagers also being sacrificed. Lucifron trying to reposition the army. This is a hard fight, folks. Springles, they have got the shutter triggers, so it's going to get sniped out if he tries to take the engagement. Instant Bull Observatory is on the way. But he's going to wish it was an Instant Bull Observatory here, because if he can't get it in 5 seconds flat, it might feel too late. Army marches in. He needs to supply around the back here. The siege is the only way it's going to die. And no, the army value does not count Olive Oil. So these armies are not even close in count. This is a double up and then some for Pink. Cannons march in. Just a few troops on the flanks to hold back the Sipahi. Crossbows to the body blocks to make sure he cannot win out the siege. Observatory is almost complete on the north side of the base. It's not going to get raided, but it's not going to matter much at this rate. Military is down to 34 versus 84. Pink is basically ready to throw away this army just to replace it again. The siege is irreplaceable right now for Lucifron. Loses another spring on the backside. Burn down continues. Eco now being exposed, and Lucy, he knows he's going to be forced into the fight that he doesn't want to take. The only upside for him right now, this wall, it is up, it is in the way. His opponent cannot choose the clash on the west side. Lucifron has to. Lucifron really has to, but he doesn't want to. Limitane going to wipe the Sipahi. This looks all but over. Mangonels might get a freebie onto the crossbow mass. A heavy hit indeed, but an irrelevant one. Demolishment continues. 2 of the military schools have been taken out. And even after that wallop, there's just still so many units left alive. This game looks done. What an interesting build out of Pink, actually. I love the way that they tempered the control on the map. they understood exactly when the Keshet should go in, and they understood when Lucifron was going to overextend. And not just that, afterwards, the Gulen play, just in case there's any sort of double up here, a perfect counter to everything that Lucifron tried to field. And I'm not sure who Zizizizz is, but I'm intrigued to see more of them, because right now they are ranked previous seasons 539th, 22nd season 3. This is either Wham. This could be Puppy Paw. I don't think this plays like Magic necessarily, but we'll have to see more to find out. If you guys do want to see more of ZZZZ, let me know in the comments. Be sure to comment down below and subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any of the action.